A long time ago, in an insignificant galaxy far, far.
Sorry about that, guys. I was just I was channeling my inner Palpatine there after having read some of the reviews for Star Wars Battlefront and reading some of those lovely comments from people who just don't like the game. I mean, it's no secret that there's a lot of negativity around this one, but I'm going to talk about that a little later on in the review. Right now, what I want to do is I want to offer you guys my honest opinion, my honest review for Star Wars Battlefront. There are some things I like about this game, there's some things I love about this game, and there's some things that I really, really don't like. Okay, so first up, graphics. There's really not a lot to say about the graphics in this game. It looks absolutely amazing. I would have to say that this is probably the best looking game that I have ever laid eyes on, and is certainly the best looking game that I've ever run on my rig. The attention to detail that went into making this game is just mind-blowingly amazing. Visually, the eye candy here for Star Wars fans is off the charts. You feel like you're in the movies. It has an amazing amount of atmosphere, and it pulls you into its world instantly. The highlights for me have to be Hoth and Endor. On Hoth, the ice caves just look amazing. The detail of the ice on the walls and the snow, just astonishing. And with Endor, I think it's the first time I've ever played in a forest in a video game and actually felt like I was in a forest. It doesn't feel like I'm in a field with a few trees sticking out of the ground. This feels like a fully fleshed out forest for the first time in my life, in gaming history, that I have ever experienced. This is 100%. It feels like a forest. And I don't know if all of you have seen the behind the scenes stuff that they've done for this, but they did go on location for the filming sets, and they must have spent a lot of time writing down notes and taking photos, and they spent a lot of time putting that into the game, and it definitely shows. Audio. The audio in this game is also amazing. They went in and they got the original sound files from Lucas Studios, and man, it shows, because everything from the blaster sound effects to the lightsabers to the TIE fighters flying over your head, explosions, everything is 110% authentic Star Wars. And if you've got a decent pair of headphones, I highly recommend playing with them, because you are in for a treat. If you have a good surround system, as I do in my studio, turn that shit up and let the neighbors complain, because I'll tell you what, it gets pretty chaotic in this game, and it sounds phenomenal. When things are blowing up and you're just in the thick of battle, wow, it just sounds amazing. Controls. This is an area of the game where it really depends on what you're playing on. If you're playing on console, I don't see anybody having any trouble with the controls. For PC users, at least for me, it's a little on the awkward side using my star cards. Everything is bound to the 1, 2, 3, and 4 keys, and it feels very awkward reaching up to use those keys. Also, it feels very awkward trying to melee somebody. Maybe it's just me. I've had a little bit of trouble with it. So I went through and I rebound my keys in a way that's more comfortable. So it's not too much of an issue. You can go in and rebind your keys. And, you also have the option to play with a controller, which is something that I've tried to do and it doesn't really lend itself very well on PC in terms of aiming. As for the controls in the vehicles, it's kind of spotty. The vehicles control decently the way you would expect them to control for the most part, but as soon as you hop into any kind of aerial vehicle, you can just take your keyboard and throw it straight in the trash, because it's useless. It's completely useless. It was useless in beta. It's useless now. It doesn't feel very responsive. You're definitely going to want to have a controller on hand very close by for whenever you do hop into an aerial vehicle, because as soon as that happens, the controller just absolutely shines through. Every time I hop into a snow speeder or anything that has to fly around a TIE fighter and X-Wing, I've got my controller nearby, and it functions perfectly with a controller, but yeah, no. Keyboard and mouse, just not functional in my opinion in terms of aerial combat. Everything else controls perfectly fine. In terms of replayability and what this game has to offer people, There doesn't seem to be a whole hell of a lot of maps right now, but what I've played, I've enjoyed for the most part. The game modes seem to be quite varied, but this is one of those things where you're pretty much going to find the game modes that you like and you're going to stick to them anyway, but they do offer a decent amount of variety here. But just to go over them briefly, you have pretty much your standard deathmatch here. You also have Capture the Flag, and you have some more unique modes like playing as heroes versus villains. You also have Droid Run, which is my personal favorite, where you have to go around the map and try to maintain control of 3 different droids. It's kind of similar to control points from the classic Battlefront games, only imagine if there was only 3 of them and they move around at all times. Drop Zone is also a pretty unique mode to this game where a pod will drop out of the sky and both teams are trying to control it. It's only a single pod though, and it's in a stationary position unlike Droid Run, so it kind of gets a little bit campy, I've noticed, which is something that I kind of take issue with in games. The whole camping thing, it just kind of gets on my nerves, so I don't really play that as much as I do Droid Run. Droid Run keeps people moving around, and that's probably why I like that mode the most. Hero Hunt is also pretty unique in that one player will control a hero or villain and everybody else is trying to kill them. Whoever kills the hero becomes the hero, and it just goes on from there. This is a game mode that I've played only once but didn't really care for because it tends to lend itself to 2 or 3 people that really know what they're doing and everybody else is just chasing them around trying to get that last hit on a hero so that they can become the hero or villain. Supremacy. Supremacy is a lot more akin to the old style control points from classic Battlefront games. This is where you have 40 players on a massive map with vehicles and heroes and everything going on all at once. This is absolutely insane. This is a game mode where you're going to die a lot most likely and where you're probably going to get a lot of kills because it's just nuts. There's people everywhere and it is a lot of fun. Fighter Squadron. I would have to say that this is one amazing game mode and it feels like a completely different game altogether because this is complete and utter aerial combat epicness. This is what everybody was complaining about when they said there's no space battles in this game. Well, you really don't need space battles because this is essentially the same thing. So essentially what this game mode entails is a group of fighters trying to keep the team away from their transport ship as you try to attack their transport ship. You will be seeing the Millennium Falcon and the Slave One in this, which they kind of function like hero ships. They seem to be quite a bit stronger. I've not played as them yet, but from what I've played of this mode, it is a lot of fun. So there really is a decent amount of variety here, and I've been seeing a lot of people complaining about the variety, saying there isn't as much content here as there was in the original games. I don't agree. Now, where I will agree with you is that there are definitely more maps in the classic Star Wars Battlefront games than what we have now, and some of that stuff is locked behind paywalls. This is an issue. This is something I do take issue with, despite what I've said on the channel about me wanting to personally get the DLC and whether or not I think it's worth it. It does suck that we're going to see 20 or so maps locked behind a paywall as well as items and other heroes. This is something that is unfortunately part of modern gaming, but nevertheless, it's something that I have a problem with. I do remember when games used to ship complete and they didn't milk you dry. This is one of those games that does that, so there is definitely a huge negative just aura hanging over this game. And it really sucks because I enjoy myself very, very much while playing this game. I think there's a lot of replay value here despite what I'm seeing from other reviewers. A lot of reviewers are trying to say that the game starts to get boring right around the 5 to 10 hour mark. I do not feel that way. They're saying that that Star Wars epic feeling, that magic that you get when you first play starts to kind of go away. It does a little bit. It's not as wow factor as when you first fire the game up and start playing, but it doesn't completely disappear. I feel that it maintains itself pretty well. Is this a game that's going to keep you entertained for 200, 300, 400 hours? It depends. How much are you into multiplayer shooters? Me personally, I don't tend to play multiplayer shooters as much as I do games, say like Skyrim or Fallout 4. I don't think you're going to find the same level of depth and replayability in a game that focuses around multiplayer combat. Me personally, I don't play multiplayer shooters for hours upon hours. I just don't. It's one of those genres where I play anywhere between an hour to maybe 4 hours max, and then I move on and do something else. But what I will say is this: when I put the game down for a while and move on and start doing something else, after a while I start to get the itch to hop back in there and start playing again. In terms of single player, I know there's a lot of people who are upset about Galactic Conquest not being in this game, and that was really surprising to me because I was one of those people who didn't really mess with it. When I played Battlefront back in the day, I played it because I wanted to play in a multiplayer setting. So it's very shocking to me how many people miss that. But we do have single player survival mode game types, and we do have some other game types that are they're kind of tutorials, to be fair, to try to get you used to the game. But the survival modes are a lot of fun. There's definitely a lot of challenge here, but the main problem I have with the survival modes is if you want to play cooperatively, you have to have somebody already pre-invited. You can't just open up a lobby and expect somebody to come into your game. It doesn't function that way. So if you don't know someone and you don't have a predetermined plan to play with them, well, you're going to be playing solo, and that's unfortunate. I don't see why they couldn't open matchmaking for this game mode. So the game is definitely not perfect. There are things that are wrong with it. There are times where I've tried to get into games and it tells me that the server is not allowing me in. This is something that I experienced the first time playing the game while I was streaming it, and I had a hell of a time trying to get into Walker Assault to the point where I just gave up. I didn't get into Walker Assault. I completely gave up on the idea altogether and played other game modes. One of the things that I think really stands out that I don't think a lot of people are mentioning is that the heroes feel very unique. This is something that, correct me if I'm mistaken, but I don't seem to remember really being a thing with Star Wars Battlefront 2. When you played as a hero, they all pretty much function the same way. They might have had a little bit of different ability to them, but it mostly just felt like they had different skins. These heroes have distinct traits and very different abilities. So that's one of the biggest things to me that stands out, and I think that bears mentioning. When I see people say that Star Wars Battlefront is half the game as Star Wars Battlefront 2 was, I don't agree. I agree that there aren't enough maps and that needs to change, and unfortunately it's going to be changing through DLC, but I still feel that there's a decent amount here. So all in all, I do enjoy this game. I think it's a very good game. I think it's an expensive game, and it's one of those things that if you're not a Star Wars fan, it's probably not going to be for you. You might be better off just sticking to Battlefield or Call of Duty. Now, for those of you who might happen to be on the fence about this game, I would say just wait it out. Just wait it out. If you don't think it's worth the money right now and you don't want to pay $50 for a season pass and you don't want to buy DLC on a case-by-case basis, just wait. Wait 8 to 12 months for the game to come out as a package deal for $30 or $40. I will say, however, that I do feel there is a lack of weapons in this game. There's only about 11 to 12 weapons to choose from, and the reason for that is probably because they're locked behind a DLC paywall. That really sucks, and it's really frustrating. And it's something that, you could get away with that amount of weapons back in the day, say maybe PS2 era. But nowadays, people want a lot of weapons. They want that customization, and sadly, it's just not here yet. Now, for those of you who know how I am, I typically don't like to place numbers on anything. I believe it's a flawed system, but I do understand that people respond to numbers. They like to see numbers. So I would say if I had to judge this game based on a multiplayer shooter, I would rank it probably about a 7.5 or an 8 out of 10, somewhere around that neighborhood. So there you have it, guys, my review for Star Wars Battlefront. If you like this review, please remember to leave a thumbs up. If you're new to my channel, I ask that you please subscribe. I thank you all for watching, and I look forward to seeing you all in my next video.